Where there are machines, there are machinations. And where there are machinations, lies a heart. So, shadow crystals. What the heck are they? I play the erhu, a two-stringed fiddle nearly 1,000 years older than the violin, and I want to use this awesome instrument to play Black Knife. Only problem is, Black Knife is the theme song for the villain practically made out of these mysterious crystals. So if I want to do Black Knife justice, I'm going to have to understand shadow crystals. And to do that, I'm going to use principles from Daoism. Yes, really, that Daoism. Call me crazy, but I think there are principles from Daoism out of all things that can lead to an impactful interpretation of shadow crystals. I'm not confident enough to call it a theory per se. Let's go with hypothesis, the machine heart hypothesis. So, if that perks your interest at all, get ready for a 15-ish minute cross-cultural rant on the erhu, Daoism, shadow crystals, and Black Knife. Starting with... So first things first, we hit the books, and by that I mean watch several hours of Deltarune fan theories to catch myself up on the pre-existing shadow crystal literature. And immediately, there's something that I think the erhu can help with. The idea of Des's probable theme Lost Girl being somehow related to Black Knife because of the theory that Des is the Roaring Knight. Listening to it, I can definitely get an inkling of Lost Girl, but I couldn't put my finger on anything specific. Thankfully, I was able to find two good videos by Cadence Hira and Kris that let me get a sense of the connections we already know, like how Black Knife's first main melody comes from Door. That got me thinking, if this is what we can get from normal staff notation, what can we do with numbers? Number notation is what you'll see the erhu and other traditional Chinese instruments use nowadays, and what makes this notation scheme so special is that it is a movable dose system. So regardless of the key, a scale degree 3 will always be written as 3, a scale degree 7 will always be written as 7, etc. And for cases like Lost Girl and Black Knife, that key agnosticism was a boon in trying to see if there is any relationship between these two themes. So, is there a relationship? Honest answer is... maybe. So here are Lost Girl and Black Knife in number notation as close as I could get it by ear. What immediately caught my eye was that both of these melodies have similar beginnings and endings. In the beginning, we have a section of scale degrees 4, 6, 1, and 3. Yes, they're out of order with some repeats, but that underlying chord is tantalizingly close. Then at the ending, both of these melodies start off with a scale degree 4 and 3 before then ending on 2. Yes, this could just be my observation bias going haywire, but at the same time, I can't deny the fact that as soon as I heard that part of Black Knife, my mind did subconsciously go to Lost Girl. I think more interesting than the idea that there is some clean mapping from Black Knife to Lost Girl or vice versa is the idea that Toby Fox was able to come up with a minimum viable percentage of Lost Girl, such that our minds can still instinctually go to it. Of course, keeping this tenuous relationship in mind is only the first step. To actually play this on erhu, we're going to have to talk about actual techniques, especially... So if you've seen my projects before, you know what's next. Practice, 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 and more practice. But what stood out to me for Black Knife particularly was the Roaring Knight's, well, roar. I mean, come on, it's the Roaring Knight. If we get anything right in the song, it has to be the roar. So what kinds of erhu techniques can get me close to that sort of roar? Well, there are a few techniques that immediately come to mind. First off, for the pitch bending, I couldn't think of a better technique than vibrato, particularly the type of vibrato that can only be done on the erhu rather than the violin or other string instruments. If you've seen my Omori video, then you might remember that the erhu has the unique advantage of 5-dimensional vibrato, and 2 of those dimensions are directional. Isolate the in-out dimension and you get what we call yaro, or pressing vibrato. Isolate the up-down dimension and you get what we call huaro, or sliding vibrato. As for the roar, the erhu is pretty famous for its horse neigh. But a neigh ain't a roar. The closest traditional erhu technique that I could think of was shuanggong, or double bow. That's where you treat the bow stick as a second bow. And since your actual bow is in between your 2 strings, you can do this. But I gotta say, there's still something missing from that roar. Something to make it unstable, animalistic, blasphemous even, just like the roar that the Roaring Knight does in-game. But to find something like that, we have to go all the way back to the Roaring Knight as a character, their philosophy, their... So what is this machine heart hypothesis, this Daoist interpretation of shadow crystals? Well, referencing the ancient texts, in the Zhuangzi, one of the 2 fundamental texts of Taoism written over 2,200 years ago, there is the story of Zigong, a disciple of Confucius, yes, that Confucius, who runs into an old gardener. The garden was made such that to water it, you had to hand carry jars of water over to the plants, which obviously isn't the most efficient way of watering a garden. So Zigong goes over to the gardener and asks, hey, there's a new invention going around called the shadoof that can water 100 of these sorts of plots. Do you want to try it? The gardener asks, how does it work? And Zigong goes into detail about how this shadoof thingy has a lever that lets you bring up water as quickly as if you were to do so by hand. And this gets the gardener majorly ticked. The gardener, I'm not making this up, gets angry, laughs, and says, my mentor told me that where there are machines, there are machinations. And where there are machinations lies a heart-made machine. With a heart-made machine in one's chest, one loses their chance at purity of one's nature. With the loss of one's own purity, one loses spiritual stability, and those with an unstable spirit cannot be carriers of the Tao. It is not that I do not know about this AI-generated music, shadoof, but I would be ashamed to use it. And, yeah, if you wanted to know what roasting someone sounds like in ancient Chinese, there you go. And of course, Zigong is completely blindsided. So the gardener uses this chance to continue said roasting, eventually ending with, you cannot even regulate yourself. What leisure do you have to be regulating the world? Please go on your way, sir, and do not interrupt my work. And this roasting, again, I'm not making this up, took Zigong 30 ancient Chinese miles of walking to get over. When he finally does meet back up with Confucius, Zigong tells him about this roasting, and Confucius's response is interesting. That gardener only pretends to practice the arts of primordial chaos. He knows one but does not know two. He regulates his inner self, but not the outside world. Now, if he truly had the luminous clarity to enter unadorned simplicity, to through non-action return to the uncarved block, to embrace his inner spirit, and in doing so become one who freely wanders the outside world, we might then be amazed. But what from the primordial age is there worthy of us knowing? I think the use of machines here, particularly the idea of a heart-made machine, is very, very interesting. First of all, to get some translation-related stuff out of the way, obviously Jishin, or machine heart / heart-made machine, doesn't literally mean a cyborg heart. Rather, I think this is getting at what we today would call underfitting. It's clear in hindsight that the gardener's purpose wasn't to water as many gardens as possible. In fact, saying it out loud like that kind of makes the foolishness of focusing on garden watering efficiency per fiscal quarter kind of obvious. Instead, the gardener simply wanted to garden, to experience the process of nurturing a tiny part of nature. That was the gardener's goal. Heck, regardless of what literary Confucius may have thought about the gardener clinging to primordial, outdated principles, we in the modern day have thought experiments basically just like this. The paperclip maximizer and the Taurus and the fisherman are pretty much modern day versions of this story of underfitting the spirit of a goal. And no, I don't read this as some simplistic take like all technology or even all AI bad, return to monkey. After all, even the gardener is presumably wearing clothes and using gardening tools appropriate to the era, which in themselves are technological innovations. Rather than anything specifically about technology, when I read the term jishin, I get the sense of someone so short-sighted, so materialistic, that they are willing to sacrifice their own spiritual sanity and even the well-being of others just to achieve a goal that, through their methods, is going to be rendered meaningless by their own hand. And just throwing a random example out there, if that goal is breaking a prophecy, then a machine heart centered around that goal, that dream, would be one that seemingly guides you towards breaking out, but in actuality, only gives you bits and pieces of the prophecy that guide you towards either fulfilling the prophecy or breaking the prophecy in such a way that renders that goal meaningless, such as at the price of killing a classmate or manipulating and hurting a friend. A machine heart, like many mechanical innovations, would provide a combat advantage, albeit at the price of spiritual sanity. A machine heart would be comprised of and driven by all of the broken dreams rendered so by the prophecy itself. A machine heart, with its short-term simplicity and drive to proceed, would be very, very addicting. Shadow crystals are machine hearts. Obviously, it's not all that likely that Toby Fox literally used the idea of a machine heart to craft the idea of a shadow crystal, but I think just the fact that we can dig a little bit deeper into the themes behind shadow crystals through this 2,200-year-old text is pretty dang cool. So, returning to the Erhu, what is something I can do to make this technique so insane, so blasphemous, that it defeats the purpose of making this sort of sound effect? Unfortunately, I came up with something. If you've seen my Paganini video where I tried playing Paganini's Caprice number 24 on the Erhu, you might remember that I figured out a way to play parallel octaves, specifically by using the nail of my pinky finger. However, there was a comment on that video that made the very good point that Paganini's Caprice number 24 also has parallel thirds, but my technique is only good for intervals past the parallel fifth. Anything lower than that should be impossible. Emphasis on should. Real disclaimer right here, if you are an Erhu beginner or novice, please do not try this technique. I have messed up at Erhu for over a decade now, so I feel okay with committing this blasphemy, but I could see someone easily developing a bad habit with their left hand from this technique if they aren't careful. Okay, ready? The technique is simply to use your thumb. Now, this breaks one of the most important tenets of your left hand, that being that your huko, or your tiger mouth / web of your hand for the more boring name, should be in the other direction, because that is how you're able to play notes on the erhu without turning the muscles of your fingers into a pretzel. By committing this blasphemy, I have achieved my goal, but sacrificed so many tenets of erhu technique that I have essentially lost the spirit of the goal, a machine-hearted technique. And in this one case of Black Knife, I guess that's a good thing? So while I avoid getting struck by lightning sent down from the erhu gods, please enjoy this machine-hearted time-lapse, and I will see you at the other side for a machine-hearted erhu cover. So, what do you think? I know I went a bit heavy with the philosophical ranting in this video, but when I saw that connection to not only shadow crystals, but even modern day AI slop, I just couldn't resist. And I hope that through my cross-cultural ranting that you found a way to love something you already love even more. As I've said before, I love to hear what you think and how I can make these sorts of projects even better. So feel free to leave a comment and I will do my best to keep up with all of your ideas. Until the next project, if you want more Uhu goodness to tide you over, I have another Deltarune related project all about Spamton and Big Shot that I will leave here just for you. With that, excited to see you in the next project. And as always, I hope you're well, wherever you are.